I'm Julia Sondu, showing you where development is happening. Please come and join us. General says China is seeking a naval base in West Africa. The Chinese are actively seeking a military naval base in Africa on the Atlantic coast, which would threaten U.S. national security, Army General Stephen J. Townsend, commander of U.S. Africa Command, said. Townsend and other Defense Department officials testified at a House Armed Services Committee hearing on national security challenges and U.S. military activities in the Middle East and Africa. The thing I think I'm most worried about is this military base on the Atlantic coast, and where they have the most traction for that today is in Equatorial Guinea, Townsend said. They've also been seeking other ports on the West Africa coastline, but they've made the most progress in Equatorial Guinea, he said. In response, the U.S. has recently sent an interagency delegation to that country to discuss U.S. security concerns. As a first priority, we need to prevent or deter a Chinese space on the Atlantic coast of Africa, mentioning that he would discuss with lawmakers more details of those national security concerns in closed session. Elsewhere in Africa, China holds a large percentage of foreign debt and also has extended leases on critical infrastructure, including ports and airports, he said. Russia also has nefarious designs in Africa, one of which is through its private security company called the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group offers governments the ability to conduct counterinsurgency and counterterrorism operations unconstrained by human rights responsibilities. Wagner obeys no rules. They won't follow the direction of the government. They won't partner more effectively, he said. A battle between democracy and authoritarianism is raging across Africa, the general said. In Africa, a few troops and a few bucks still go a long way. Modest and predictable resourcing yields outsized returns for U.S. and African security. AFRICOM receives just 0.3% of the DOD operating budget and manpower, he said. Modest investments today can yield a continent of partners tomorrow. We are most effective when we synchronize diplomacy, development, and defense. Sasha Baker, Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, testified that the department seeks to limit Russian and Chinese influence in Africa and the Middle East through sustained engagement, demonstrating the superiority of the United States as a partner of choice. In the Middle East and Africa, the department builds partnership through an approach that draws on all of our tools to include security cooperation, exercises, defense, diplomacy, and force posture, she said. The department's priorities in the Middle East are to defend against Iranian-backed threats and to counter violent extremist organizations, in cooperation with partners, she said. In Africa, DOD is focused on interagency and multilateral efforts to stabilize the region, she said. On September 18, 2023, U.S. military resumes counterterrorism missions in Niger after coup. This move also signals a willingness to collaborate with the new military junta in Niger. In a significant development, the U.S. military has resumed counterterrorism missions in Niger, marking its commitment to fighting terrorism in the region despite the political upheaval caused by a coup. This move also signals a willingness to collaborate with the new military junta in Niger. The heart of this disruption revolves around Nigerian Air Base 201, a strategically vital installation valued at $110 million. It boasts a 6,200-foot runway tailored to accommodate MQ-9 Reapers and manned aircraft, playing a central role in the U.S.'s counterterrorism efforts in West Africa. Since the coup in July, approximately 1,100 U.S. forces stationed in the country had been confined within their bases. Recently, the Pentagon announced the relocation of some military personnel and assets from the airbase near Niamey, Niger's capital, to another in Agadez, a city approximately 920 kilometers away. Interestingly, this troop movement coincided with Bukinafaso, Niger's southwestern neighbor and a supporter of the coup, deploying its military units in Niger. This action came in response to the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, threat to restore democracy in Niger. However, in recent weeks, after a slight pause in flight operations, some intelligence and surveillance missions have been able to resume through U.S. negotiations with the junta, according to General James Hecker, the top Air Force commander for Europe and Africa. Hecker noted that while not all missions have resumed, a large amount of missions that we were doing before are back on track. These missions include manned and unmanned flights, which have resumed within the last couple of weeks. Nevertheless, the considerable distance between the two bases poses challenges, limiting the duration of missions due to fuel constraints. The US has established Niger as its primary regional outpost for armed drone patrols and counter-terror operations against Islamic extremist groups. These bases are pivotal components of America's broader counter-terrorism initiatives in West Africa. Additionally, the US has invested significant resources in training Nigerian forces. In 2018, it started arming its fleet of MQ-9 drones stationed in Niger, which have the capability to strike targets across West and North African countries. Meanwhile, on September 21, 2023, thousands rally in Niger, seek withdrawal of French troops. Thousands of people rallied on Saturday in Niger's capital, Niamey, to demand that former colonial ruler, France, withdraws its troops as sought by the military junta that seized power in June. The protesters gathered near a base housing French soldiers following a call by several civil organizations hostile to the French military presence in the West African country. They held up banners proclaiming, "French Army, leave our country." Niger's military regime had fired a new verbal outrage at France on Friday, accusing Paris of blatant interference by backing the country's ousted president, as protesters held a similar protest near a French base outside Niamey. Ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, a French ally whose election in 2021 had stoked hopes of stability in the troubled country, was detained on July 26 by members of his guard. Relations with France, the country's former colonial power and ally in its fight against jihadism, went swiftly downhill after Paris stood by Bazoum. On August 3, the regime announced the scrapping of military agreements with France, which has some 1,500 soldiers stationed in the country to help fight jihadism in the region, a move that Paris has ignored on the grounds of legitimacy. The agreements cover different timeframes, although one of them dating from 2012 was set to expire within a month, according to military leaders. The military rulers have also announced the immediate expulsion of the French ambassador, Sylvain It, and announced it was withdrawing his diplomatic immunity, noting that his presence was a threat to public order. But French President Emmanuel Macron, on Monday, hailed its work in Niger and said he was in the country despite being given a 48-hour deadline to leave the country. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog. Thank you.